Hi everyone. So welcome to the live stream today. Very much excited for having you as we continue with our discussion towards the key conventions and principles in management accounting that you need to understand in order for you to increase your chances of passing the management accounting examination. So we are continuing the discussion on how to pass management accounting, focusing on the key principles and conventions that you need to understand and look at as you prepare for your management accounting examination. And welcome to the live stream. This is the part two in case you missed the part one where we discuss the scope of the syllabus and the key issues that you need to understand. The link is to that video is in the description and you can watch that as well after the live stream, or you watch that before you continue with this if you are watching the playback of the live stream. And I'm very much excited for having you. Comment in the chat box any questions that you have for me, things that you would want me to share my thoughts on real quick. And also make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, click the bell notification icon. That way, when I go live or release new content, YouTube will be able to send you the notification so you don't miss anything, that you'll be able to join the discussion. Smash the like button as well on the video. That way we get more engagement on the video, and YouTube will be able to push the video so we can reach as many students as possible. Remember also to share the video with your colleagues, your friends, and the people that you know who will be in need of such videos. Or we have a lot of content already on the channel, so share with your friends and your colleagues. Let's get as many students as possible watching these videos, coming to this community and assisting a lot of the students across the continent, across the globe, so that we can together reach as many as possible. So I see some of you guys joining the stream. Welcome to the live stream. Comment in the chat box any questions you have for me, what you want me to share my thoughts on, and also make sure that you give us a thumbs up on the video so we get more engagement on the video. So let's get into our discussion real quick on the issue in relation to how to pass the management accounting examination. I'm going to just run through quickly in what we discussed in part one and the issues that we mentioned in part one. So I'm sharing my screen with you as you can see there. So in the part one, I mentioned about, I spoke about the fact that there are 4 things that you need to take into consideration in relation to the management accounting examination. And if you're going to pass the exams, 3 things very critical. You must understand the structure of the syllabus, you must know the exam structure, and also understand the basic principles and the conventions, because these are the ones that are going to be assisting you in order for you to pass the examination. With the syllabus outlook, we looked at the structure of the syllabus and the various things that you need to pay attention to, focus on in the part one. Budgeting, critical there. Management decisions and techniques, we spoke about that. Short-term decisions that we need to focus on, we need to understand in order to for us to increase our chances of passing the examination. We also mentioned that as well in our discussion as we continue with it. Then we came to the issue about long-term decisions, where we said this is where we are looking at what investment appraisal techniques, and we are going to be looking at the stages or the capital budgeting processes. We look at the differences between profit-making organizations and then not-for-profit making organizations when it comes to investment appraisal analysis. Then the methods of investment appraisal that we're going to be looking at, and that is going to be the accounting rates of return, the payback period, the discounted payback period, the net present value, as well as the internal rate of return. We mentioned that as well. Then we came to performance evaluation, which is the last aspect of our syllabus, and that is going to be 3 issues that I mentioned there, that we're going to be dealing with the concept of divisionalization, the concept of transfer pricing, as well as performance measurement, where we look at how to measure the performance of the entire organization and also measure the performance of the various divisions within an organization in that case. So in the part one, these are some of the things that we spoke about, and most importantly about the exam structure. We mentioned this, that depending on how excited the examiner is about the exams, he is likely to do, there is definitely going to be a written and comment question in the exam hall, as well as the computational or quantitative aspects as well in the exams. So we mentioned that when it comes to the issue about the percentage wise, depending on how excited the examiner is, we could have 40% or to 60%. That means that 40% of the theories. So I made mention of the fact that as you are learning the management accounting, you've got to make sure that you don't skip the theories. You make sure that you understand the theories, how the theories are dealt with, and how the pieces are together in order for you to increase the chances of actually passing the examination. So we mentioned that you've got to read thoroughly all the theories that pertains to management accounting. And I said every topic you pick actually has a theory there: pricing decisions, break-even analysis, limiting factor analysis, relevant cost analysis, budgetary and budgetary control, variance analysis, performance evaluation. All of these things have theories in there that you need to understand. The concept of value chain analysis, the balance scorecard, cost reduction, cost control, the concept of ethics. All of these things have theory or theory things that you need to understand in order for you to increase your chances of actually passing the examination. So that was what we discussed in the part one of our discussion on how to pass management accounting examination, focusing on the key concepts and principles. I see some of you guys joining. Welcome to the live stream. Give us a thumbs up on the video when you join. That way we get more engagement on the video. And also comment in the chat box what you want me to share my thought on. Maybe there is a topic in man accounting you would want me to cover this season on the live stream, or there is a topic in another subject that you would want me to cover on the channel this semester. Put it in the chat box. I'm going to be reading all of your comments and also be able to plan out our live streams based on the questions that we receive and the queries that we get definitely from you guys. So I see a comment coming in from Messi Goma, saying that greetings from Zambia. God bless you for the work you are doing. Amen. Mercy. Greetings to you as well. I hope that you're doing well and you are really, really studying for your exams. Right. So let's get straight up into some of the concepts or basic assumptions that we need to understand when it comes to dealing with the issue about management accounting. Like I say all the time, management accounting sort of has a way of presenting itself to students where students actually have challenges in relation to passing the paper. But in my opinion, I don't think that it should be a challenge in that case. However, it is because students don't understand the basic concepts, the basic principles, the basic assumptions. So the basic conventions and principles in management accounting. Now, as a management accounting student, there are a couple of things that you need to understand, a couple of things that you need to have at the back of your mind as you walk into the exam hall. Now, I have mentioned this already, but you got to understand also how excited the examiner is about the exams. Number one, you have to understand that management accounting has a lot of theories inside. Okay, so there are a lot of written or comments, or if you want, reading aspects of the syllabus. And you should be able to understand these very well to position yourself to pass the exams. Because remember what I told you, I showed you a moment ago, depending on how excited the examiner is, he could do 60% as against, how do we call it? 40% for the exams. And you should be able to be in the position to be able to do that, to be able to understand that, to be able to be in that position to write it out. So the first basic convention or principle that I want you to understand when it comes to management accounting is the fact that management accounting has a lot of written comments and reading aspects, and you want to make sure that you understand these in order to position yourself to pass the examination. Very, very critical. Now, The theories can span across any aspect of the syllabus, depending on how excited the examiner is, as always. So the theories can be from anywhere. However, you have to position yourself and note that there are key topics in the syllabus that the examiner is going to be throwing some questions at you from in that case. So key topics, as always, such as the issue in relation to short-term decisions. Okay, there are theories in here. The examiner is going to be throwing that at you. Whether you like it or not, there is a theory area in this place that the examiner is going to be throwing at you. Then there is also the issue in relation to budgeting. Another huge area for the examiner to throw some theory at you: standard costing and then variance analysis. Standard costing and variance analysis. Another area that the examiner is going to be throwing a question at you, then the examiner will take you back and then bring you a question definitely on the introduction to management accounting. So there's a theory question waiting for you in the exam hall on the introduction to management accounting. This is very critical. This is very, very important. Whether you like it or not, the examiner is going to be bringing some introductory aspects. Now, when we talk about introductory aspects, we are talking about qualities of a good information, accounting for material, accounting for labor, accounting for overheads, accounting for, yes, those kind of basic introductory things. The importance of information to management decision making. All of these areas are theories that the examiner could throw at you in that case. But also note that there is always going to be an analysis aspect of the question. So depending on, again, how excited the examiner is, he may throw a question at you where you would have to make some analysis. So it is either going to be in relation to short-term decisions where you are going to be having a couple of issues about Right. So we could have issues in relation to these introductory aspects as well, where the examiner will ask you to do the calculation. So after you do the calculation, you will be asked on what will the organization do, or what should the organization do, and you should be able to be in the position to be able to answer that. So these are the theory areas. These are theory areas that you need to understand at the first stage. So that is a core principle, a convention that you need to understand, that this subject, number one, it's written, it's based on comments, it has a reading aspect. And what are these reading aspects? Short-term decisions, something is going to be springing up from there. Budgeting, if the examiner is excited about it. Standard costing and variance analysis. Introduction to management, where we go back to the issues in relation to level 1, introduction to management accounting, and the examiner throws you some basic concepts that you need to understand. Definitely, the examiner could also come with a theory on performance measurement. Okay, performance measurement or performance evaluation. So the examiner could also come from that aspect of the syllabus where you are asked some theories in there as well. So that is the first basic concept that you need to understand in order for you to position yourself to pass the examination. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this aspect of the syllabus. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this aspect of the syllabus. Why am I saying that? Because, like I mentioned, depending on how excited the examiner is, we could have either a 40% or a 30% theory or written or comment questions, and that is very critical. So I've mentioned that you've got to make sure that, among other things, you work on grammar, you work on spelling, you work on your handwriting, you work on all of those things, because that is going to be critical. And as you are practicing questions, as you are solving questions, also spend some time to make sure that you are reading the theories, you are memorizing the theories, you are understanding the concepts, because when you understand the theories well, it positions you, it assists you in order for you to ultimately pass the exams in relation to that. So that is something that you need to understand when it comes to dealing with that issue. Now, aside dealing with the issue about the written aspect of the syllabus, the next thing that we can talk about will be the issue in relation to some concepts or principles. Now, remember that as a management accounting student, one of the key concepts that is going to be running through is the absorption costing principle. This principle is critical as a topic on its own when you are preparing the profit statement or the cost sheets or the cost card. When you are dealing with the issue in relation to so profit statement or the cost sheet or the cost card, the absorption costing principle is going to be critical here. Then also the issue about budgeting and budgetary control. We may need the principle here about overhead absorption. And then number 3, standard costing and variance analysis. Standard costing and variance analysis. So you want to make sure that as you are preparing yourself, you understand the marginal costing principle. Now, what does the marginal costing principle state? Well, what is it about at the end of the day when we talk about the marginal costing principle. Now, among other things, the marginal costing principle simply has to do with the issue that is very critical. And one of the key topics that I want you to really focus on is accounting for overheads. Accounting for overheads. Now, this is not directly in your syllabus ICA level 2. But in order for you to understand the absorption costing concept well, you should be able to do this very, very well, accounting for overheads. Now, before you even come to accounting for overheads, another topic that will be critical will be accounting for, cost classification. So classification of cost. So these are two critical topics that you must understand in order to help you to know the absorption costing principle. Because you see, when it comes to absorption costing, it has to do with where we are absorbing the overheads by calculating the overhead absorption rate, which is going to be equal to your budgeted overheads divided by the budgeted activity level Okay. Now, usually we say total budgeted overheads over total budgeted activity level. So you are calculating the overhead absorption rate, but there are 6 bases of absorption of overheads. And you got to understand these principles so that you know which one to apply and when. What are these 6 bases? We can calculate it based on the direct material cost, direct labor cost, based on prime cost, based on production unit, based on machine hours, and then based on labor hours. 6. Now, there are other bases of absorption of overheads, but these 6 are the basic ones that you need to understand as a management accounting student in absorption costing. Now, you got to know as well when to use what. Traditionally, it is assumed that every organization absorbs overheads under the absorption costing using labor hours. So unless otherwise we are told something else, we are going to be assuming that the entity will absorb the overheads using what? The absorption costing. Now, remember I told you that the concept of absorption costing is critical when it comes to dealing with standard costing and variance analysis. Why is that? Because when you get to standard costing and variance analysis, the way you compute the overhead variance will be based on whether the entity is using the absorption costing principle or the marginal costing principle. So in order for you to really understand and excel in standard costing and variance analysis, you should be able to understand how the absorption costing works, because you will need that in the calculation of what? The variances. So if the examiner tells you that, for instance, the company is using the marginal costing principle, then it means that when it comes to the overhead variance, we will calculate only the expenditure and then maybe the efficiency variance in relation to that. But then when there is an absorption costing school of thought, the variances are going to be different. There is going to be an additional one that we're going to be adding to it in that case. So you've got to understand this, not because we expect that the examiner will bring a question directly on the profit statement or the cost statement where you are using absorption costing or marginal costing, but also because of the fact that you would need the concept in standard costing and what? Variance analysis. So basically we assume that in absorption costing, overheads are absorbed using what? Labor hours. Overheads are absorbed using labor hours. But also you must know when to use what as a principle when you are learning some of these things as a student. Usually, if the entity is capital intensive, meaning that the entity uses a lot of equipment, a lot of machines, then it is preferred to absorb the overheads using what? The machine hours. But if the entity is labor intensive, meaning that it is using more human efforts than machinery, then we absorb the overheads using what? The labor hours. If the production units or the units, the output that the entity is producing are easily measurable, then we can use the production units to absorb the overheads. But if it is, say, for a service where we cannot measure the output readily, then we cannot use what? The production units. Then if any of these circumstances, or apart from these, outputs can be counted or measured, whether we are in a capital intensive or labor intensive, the direct labor, direct material, direct labor, and prime cost are also preferred basis of absorption of overheads. So what are we saying here? Number one, you've got to know that management accounting is full of written comments and reading aspects. Make sure you understand these very well. Number two, one key principle that is going to be running through the syllabus is the marginal costing principle. And as a student, you should be in a better position to be able to answer questions in relation to these principles as you position yourself to ultimately pass the examination. So that is the third one. So this is number one. This is number two. Then another basic principle that you need to understand, that will be number three, is the marginal costing principle. Is the marginal costing principle. As a student going into the management accounting exam, the marginal costing principle is going to be playing a key role in the exam hall. Why? Because almost all the short-term decisions that you are going to be making are going to be based on the marginal costing principles. Going to be based on the marginal costing principle. In other words, you're going to be looking at the relevant cost of buying a product. You will need this principle when dealing with issues such as limiting factor analysis. Limiting factor analysis. You will need this when you are dealing with the issue about make or buy. You will need this when you are dealing with issues such as shutdown, okay, or outsourcing. Okay, you will need this when you are doing our own cost volume profit analysis or break-even analysis. Break-even analysis. You will need this. You will need this very, very well in that case. So that is the issue about that. So you need the concept of marginal costing to be able to do or excel in short-term decisions. Limiting factor analysis, you're going to need that. Make or buy, you're going to need that. Shutdown decision or outsourcing, break-even analysis, then the concept of relevant costing analysis. Relevant costing analysis. So that is it. That is also another key principle that you have to understand. Another key principle that you have to understand as you go into the exam hall. So why do you need to understand the marginal costing? Because it helps you to deal with the short-term decisions. For your information, there is a question waiting for you in the exam hall under short-term decisions. You didn't call for it, but that is how the exams is. So there is definitely a short-term decision question waiting for you in the exam hall that you will be asked by the examiner coming from any of these. Also note that even when you're dealing with a concept of throughput, we can compare throughput accounting to the marginal costing principle. So sometimes when you're dealing with throughput, the marginal costing concepts will come in play to be able to assist us to make a decision either under the throughput environment or the marginal costing environment. So that is also another key convention or principle that you need to understand. Now, when it comes to the marginal costing, we are simply talking about the basic issues where we say that our focus in marginal costing is to maximize contribution. Okay, the objective of an organization using marginal costing is to maximize contribution. And what is contribution? We say that contribution equals your selling price minus variable cost. Contribution equals selling price minus variable cost. That is very, very critical in that case. That is very, very critical in that case. Now, when we say selling price, it could also be sales. All right. So the selling price minus variable cost. Please note at this level that when we say variable cost, we mean both production variable cost and then non-production variable cost. Okay, we mean production variable cost and non-production variable cost. That is very, very critical. That is very, very important because that is going to be playing a key role in relation to what we are doing. So our objective in the marginal costing school of thought is to maximize contribution. And contribution is our selling price or sales minus variable cost. Note that variable cost is both production variable cost or factory variable cost and then non-production cost. Now, the concept of marginal costing also comes with the variable cost concept. So if we look at the issues such as break-even analysis, it's about marginal costing principle because we are going to be interested in what? The contribution. If you look at limiting factor analysis, we are going to be using the marginal costing principle. If we look at make or buy, we are definitely going to be using the marginal costing principle in that case. If you look at the issues in relation to relevant cost analysis, we are going to be using the marginal costing principle because we will look at what is the cost of making this thing? What is the relevant cost we need to consider? So if you are looking at a relevant cost, then you have to deal with that. Even issues in relation to shutdown or outsourcing. If we make this product in-house, what is the marginal cost of producing the product in-house as compared to the buy-in price? Then we do the comparison. So you realize that this assumption is very, very critical when it comes to short-term decisions. So generally throughout short-term decisions, the marginal costing principle is going to play a key role here for you in that case. So let me try to bring this down a little bit. Uh-oh. Okay, so let's re-put that down. That's analysis. Then another area that you're going to be needing or using the marginal costing principle, like I mentioned earlier, is the issue in relation to transfer pricing. That is under performance evaluation or performance measurement. So the concept of transfer pricing when we are dealing with divisionalization, we're going to be needing the marginal costing principle. It's very critical in here. So in order for us to determine the price at which we will want division A will sell the product to division B, we will have to use the marginal cost principle. And you've got to make sure you understand this very, very well. Not only that, remember I told you about the standard costing and variance analysis. Standard costing and variance analysis. You're going to also need a marginal costing principle to calculate various variants, like the overhead variance, like the sales variance, the sales mix variance, and all of those things. The computation of these things depends on the system that organization is using. Either the organization is using the marginal costing principle or the absorption costing principle. So that is the third key convention or assumption that you need to understand as a student going into the exam hall for management accounting. Any questions for me so far? If you have any questions, you put it in the chat box for me. So I provide you with some answers real quick. If you're watching the playback also, you can still put your question in the comment box because I'll be replying to all of your questions and provide you with some answers in that case. Let me also know questions that you have or topics that you would want us to share on the channel as well in the chat box or in the comment box as we continue with our discussions. So what are we saying? If you want to pass the management accounting examination, basic conventions and principles you need to understand. Number one is that management accounting exams is going to be written, comments, and reading aspect. If the examiner is excited about the exams, about 40% of the questions will be written, comments, and reading aspects. You've got to make sure that you understand these very well. Principle number two is that to pass management accounting, you must understand the principle of absorption costing. And we made mention of the fact that if you are using the principle of absorption costing, you will need this for the profit statement preparation, the cost card preparation. You will need this for budgeting and budgetary control. You will need it for standard costing and variance analysis because these things are going to be based on those things in that case. Then I said, to understand the absorption costing principle very well, you should be able to know the two fundamental topics in management accounting. The two fundamental topics in management accounting. And these are cost classification and then accounting for overheads. So you cannot start management accounting. I don't care what you're doing, but you cannot do management accounting. You can start with budgeting, short-term decision making, profit statement preparation, or whatever it is, without first going back to understand what is cost classification and accounting for overheads, because these two topics are the foundation for you to be able to excel in the management accounting examination. So you make sure that you know the concept of cost classification, you know the concept of accounting for overheads, because that is going to be playing a key role. And we said that there are 6 bases of absorption of overheads, and we have listed them. And the circumstance under which each of these bases can be used is also something that you need to understand as a student in relation to that. Then the third principle that we are talking about is the marginal costing principle. So the third basic assumption, the third basic concept in order for you to pass your management accounting exams is to understand the marginal costing principle. Why do you need to understand the marginal costing principle? Because you will use the marginal costing principle when you are dealing with short-term decisions. Limiting factor analysis, make or buy, shutdown decision or outsourcing, break-even analysis, relevant cost analysis. You will need the marginal costing principle. Then the concept of transfer pricing and the divisionalization, you will need the marginal costing principle. Then certainly standard costing and variance analysis, you will also need the marginal costing principle. So that is the third basic assumption, the third basic convention, the third basic principle that you need to understand on how to pass the management accounting exams. Now, this spans across ICA, ICAG, CIMA, CPA. Like, it spans across. As far as you are writing management accounting exams, irrespective of the profession you're looking at, these are going to be basic issues that you have to look out for as you prepare yourself and go into the exam hall. And we made mention of the fact that when it comes to the marginal costing principle, it simply states that the objective of marginal costing is to maximize contribution. And so contribution is equal to your selling price or the sales minus the variable cost. Please note that the factory variable cost is it's both production variable cost and then non-production variable cost, production variable cost and non-production variable cost. So once you're able to get your contribution, all fixed costs are written off so that we will derive net profit or loss. Once you have your contribution, net profit is going to be derived by subtracting all fixed costs from your contribution. So that is a third assumption that you need to understand there. Right, I see some people also joining the stream. Welcome, and thank you for the thumbs up on the video. It helps us a lot. to enable the channel to be pushed to reach a lot of other students. So together we can reach many people. Also comment in the chat box any questions that you have for me. Maybe there are subjects you would want me, there are topics you would want me to share my thoughts on. You can put it in the chat box or the comment box for me. I'm going to be reading all your comments and also replying to all the comments. Thank you guys for the thumbs up. Really, really appreciate it. It helps the channel to grow, and we will be able to reach as many students as possible together. So that's the third principle. That is the third principle. I'm very much excited about the third principle in there. So number one, the theories. Number two, the absorption costing. Number three is the marginal costing principle, the marginal costing principle. Now, the fourth thing that you need to understand when it comes to passing the examination would have to do with the way you study the subjects. So the learning approach, you've got to understand this very carefully. So how do you learn the subject? What approach do you adopt to learn the management accounting subject? Because it's very tough. Students fail the exams like something. Management accounting, students fail it like something. But what is the problem? I believe that the problem is that students have a wrong approach to learning the subject, because you got to learn the subject in a certain manner in order for you to increase your chances of passing the examination. Like I said a moment ago, you cannot do management accounting if you cannot just start learning management accounting anyhow if you don't understand cost classification, then accounting for overheads. These two topics are the foundation. These two topics are the foundation for your studies. So how do you learn management accounting? Number one is to look at these two topics first. Make sure you spend time to understand cost classification very, very well. Very, very well. Now, this is where I come at you guys. Don't study on your own for management accounting exams. Don't study on your own. Make sure that you attend lectures. You know why? Let me tell you why. You don't have to study on your own for the management accounting exams. And you got to also be careful where you're going to be taking your lectures. Because one of the things I hear people saying is this, that, oh, Nhyira, I have bought the ICA manual. I have bought the ICA question kits, and I'm solving the questions. And if I solve the questions, I'm solving. If I go to the exam, or I'll go and pass. No, this is not try, all right? This is not try or lucky. This is not America lottery or any betting game or whatever it is. But you got to be careful the approach to how you study the subjects. You cannot pass the exams just saying that I'm going through the ICA book. No, you need to have a roadmap on how you can study the subject and how the topics are knitted together. What I can share with you here is that the basic thing is cost classification and accounting for overheads. Once you solidify yourself and you understand these two topics well, then you can now proceed to the other topics. Because I see some people and they are like, yo, Nhyira, I'm solving questions. Please, if you wrote man accounting last semester and you failed, or you have written man accounting for some time and you failed, don't think that you are failing because you know something and you are just doing touch-ups. No, you've got to pretend as though you know nothing. And all my students, all the students who reach out to me about management accounting, especially who have written the paper and failed, I keep on telling them this. Not only management accounting, any subject, I keep on telling them this. You've got to pretend as though you have never learned the subject before. Because you see, there is a dopamine complacency attitude that can set in for you if you're not careful about management accounting. And sometimes there is a surprise thing here. I've had people who tell me that, Nhyira, when I wrote the paper the first time, maybe I had, let's say, 42. Okay. But then when I wrote it again, I had 36. Then when I wrote it again, I had 20 or something like that. Now, what is happening? The more you are writing the paper, the less your mark is becoming. Why? Because you see, if you think you know already and you are going to just be doing brush ups, that is where you get it wrong. That is where you get it wrong. So the learning approach to management accounting is critical to the basic concepts and assumptions that I've shared with you a moment ago. So be careful. Be careful. Do not say, oh, I wrote it last semester, and when I wrote it, I got 20. So this semester, I am planning to only solve questions. And funny enough, Masa, it is not about solving questions. Okay? Passing the exams is not about solving questions. That's a shocker for you. Let me explain that. I've explained this to you guys over and over again about the academic success triangle. The academic success triangle. That for you to pass the exams, any exams you are writing, number one, you must understand the basic concepts and principles. The basic concepts and principles that underline the subjects. So like I'm sharing with you today in management accounting, the basic concepts and assumptions. What are they? You must understand them. You must understand them. The basic concepts and principle. Then you must also understand the exams structure. How is the exams like? How it is the exams like? So this is why you need an examination analysis document. This is where you need an examination analysis document, which is what we provide structure out for our students here in that case. Once you have the exam structure, then number three, you can now practice questions. Now, when you are practicing questions, it has to be under time. So you practice questions under time. Now, this is where many people get it wrong. Stay with me carefully here. This is where many people go wrong. When people have written the paper before and they are resitting, they just go and solve questions, thinking that that is all. Now, you got to be frank to yourself, because you realize that when you are solving the question, you freaked out a lot of the time. You pick the question, you don't even understand the question, you go through the solution, you don't even understand the solution, but you are still solving. Do you know your problem? Your problem is not that you cannot solve the question. Your problem is that you lack the basic understanding and principles. And Nuntina, I kept saying this, that if you wrote the exams and you are able to sit down and say that, hey, yes, even though I wrote the exam last semester, I'm going to pretend as though it is my first time. If you come with that mindset, if you come with that attitude, if you come with that way of life, there's not going to be a dopamine thing. Because there are times that I see students and they are in class, and because they've written the exams before, their attitude to lectures is even different. All right? They write what they like and that kind of thing. Because you see, if you do that thinking you know, for your information, you know nothing. Because if you fail the exams, it means you don't know. That's all. You see, this thing is not luck. Okay, it's not just about luck. If you don't work hard, if you don't really grab the concepts, the principles, you're going to screw yourself up. Because I've seen people, because they've written the exam before, the attitude is different. And this is where people will wait 2 weeks to the exams. Because he wrote it last semester, 2 weeks to the exam, that is where he will start solving questions. Masa, you will go and fail again. That is why a lot of people experience that thing of where they wrote it the first time, they got like 40. They wrote it second time, they get like 36. They wrote it third time, and they are getting like 15. What is happening? Your marks is falling. Why is the marks falling? Because you are telling yourself, I know, but you know nothing. So your learning approach to the management accounting paper, it's critical. It's critical. It's critical. It's critical. I cannot overemphasize this. So please, if you are writing management accounting, be careful in here. That is why I tell my students all the time, you cannot go a week without learning. Someone say, and I'm busy. My wife, my husband, my children. Okay. So can't you create some time for yourself? Are you okay failing the exams and wasting the money and prolonging the time and the emotional trauma and the emotional pains you go through? No, you cannot do that. So please look at your approach. Now, for your first timers, if this is the first time you're writing the management accounting exams, for you first timers, don't also lack around and be there in 2 weeks, because I know 2 weeks to the exam, people take leave. 1 week to the exam, people take leave. Listen, the leave is useless if you have not been studying. And they attend every revision class, but at the end of the day, they still don't get it done. They still don't get it done. Because you see, that 2 weeks crash revision class is for people who have been studying all this while, so that we can just fine-tune them and they go in there and they excel, period. It is not for lazy people who are just in here to come and take a point and go away. That is why you see a lot of time that even though there are a lot of revision classes that are organized across the country, the pass rate of the ICA exams is still below and students fail like hell. Why? Because it is not a problem with the tuition alone. It is not a problem with the revision alone. It is not a problem with the lecturers alone. But the problem is students' inability to sit down and give themselves excuses that don't add up. That is what you got to understand. So your learning approach to the management accounting is critical. I don't want you to sit down and tell yourself that, oh, I'm trying, I'm learning, and you learn with your feelings. You open the book as and when you like, and when it is 2 weeks to the exams, you take a leave and come and stay home and try to break through everything. No. The journey is from day one. You start failing the exams from day one. You got to understand that real quick. So your learning approach is very, very critical. I cannot overemphasize this. So you've got to make sure you pay attention to the academic success triangle. I've shared this over and over again if you're a follower of my work. Understand the basic principles. Understand the basic concepts. Make sure you understand the structure of the examination. And I've told you about this in a part 1 and as well as today. Then make sure you practice questions under time. And for those of you who have the questions and the solution, then you're just flipping through. It's like you're watching a movie on Netflix or movie on DSTV or movie or somewhere else. That is not how you're going to learn. You're going to practice the questions under time. But please, practice the questions when you understand the basic concepts. So like, for instance, I told my students here that you're going to stay away from questions in the first 6 weeks of the lecture. Stay away. Don't try to solve any questions outside what you have done in class. Spend time to understand the basic concepts, the basic principles, so that when you start practicing questions, you are rounded and you can answer the question and do a lot and make a few mistakes in relation to that. So your approach to studying management accounting is very, very critical to passing the exams. I see a comment coming in from Augustine A. Barton said, your advice and tutorials are helping me walk through my accountancy course here in America. Thanks so much, bro. It's always a pleasure, Augustine. I hope you're doing well in New York and continue to stay with us. And also, we thank God that we are able to assist you, that the channel is providing with some assistance in your journey there. Wishing you all the best as you continue with your journey there in America. So that is the fourth thing. That is the fourth thing. So what are we saying here? To pass the management accounting examination, there are basic concepts, there are basic principles, there are basic assumptions. What are these concepts? What are these principles? What are these assumptions? Number one is that The exams is going to have about 40% written, comment, or reading aspect. You've got to make sure you understand all that. Number two, you must understand the absorption costing principle, because the absorption costing principle is going to play a key role in relation to how you excel in the exam hall. In that case, it's going to be playing a key role in relation to how you excel in the exams. Not only that, because the absorption costing principle will be asked in these various topics, then you must understand that the cost classification and accounting for overheads is there. Then the marginal costing principle, another huge convention in management accounting that you need to understand in order for you to increase your chances of actually passing the exams, is the marginal costing principle. So you've got to make sure you understand the marginal costing principle, because you need it. You're going to need it in the short-term decisions. You're going to need it in transfer pricing, and you're going to need it in standard costing and variance analysis. And that is very, very critical in there. Then you come to the issue in relation to your learning approach. Your learning approach is also something that is critical. Your learning approach is also something that is critical, because the way you learn the subject is going to play a key role on whether you fail or you pass. And you want to make sure that you look at the academic success triangle to make sure you know how to go about it. Take time to understand the basic concept, the basic principles, know the exam structure, and practice questions under time. I believe that if you do this, you will be able to position yourself to pass the examination. And I'm going to be concluding some around here today on the live stream as we prepare ourselves to continue. We are in the third week for our lectures for the ICA May 2021 examination, and you can study directly under my mentorship for the exams at 390 Ghana cedis per paper across all levels. Wherever you are at, you'll be able to join our lectures live. Today is Friday. We have financial reporting, and that is starting in about 30 minutes as we continue with our discussion. And if you can visit NhyiraPremium.com, you can see the link in the description of this video, or just visit Google Nhyira Premium and visit NhyiraPremium.com and check out the courses yourself, the content yourself. Look at how things are structured on the website, on our study portal, and enroll in the course and join us. And let me assist you in order for you to prepare well for the examination, and most importantly, pass the exams in that case. So thank you very much for joining the stream. It's always a pleasure coming your way. We will be zooming back on Monday, God willing, and we're going to be continuing with a discussion non-stop like that as we see what we can do and position ourselves for the examination. So thank you very much for joining the live stream. Thank you for the likes. If you, in case you've not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because it helps us a lot. And also make sure that you click the bell notification icon and opt for all notifications. That way, when I go live or release new content on the channel, you'll be the first person to be notified by YouTube, and you can join us so that I can assist you in order for you to prepare well for your examination. So thank you very much, and have a blissful weekend. And I'll see you same time on Monday, 4:30 p.m. GMT, as we continue with our discussion towards the ICA May 2021 examination. This series, we are looking at how to pass management accounting, explaining the key concepts, the basic assumptions, the basic principles in management accounting that will assist you in order for you to prepare well for the examination. So keep on learning. Keep on studying. You can check the playlist on the channel called Fundamentals in Management Accounting, because that playlist contains a lot of materials that you need, a lot of lecture videos that you need in order for you to prepare well for your examination. Okay, so Margaret Baris, who said models of evaluation. What is that? So I can put it here. Okay, models of evaluation in man accounting, that is talking about throughput accounting, total quality management, just-in-time system, cost reduction. Yeah, those things. Oh, yeah, we will see and go through a number of them as we continue in our discussion in here. And also, like I said, you can enroll in the full course on our website at nhyirapremium.com for 390 Ghana cedis and get access to all the content. Join our weekly Zoom sessions, become a part of us. We're going to be assisting you, help you, provide you with all you need in order for you to position yourself to pass the examination. So thank you very much for joining the stream, and I'll see you same time on Monday. Bye-bye.